people are crazy. This is going to be a disaster.
I want to begin by congratulating Blaine Higgs on his re-election in New Brunswick. I spoke with him last night, and we committed to continue to work together to keep people safe in New Brunswick and across the
place in our healthcare system. We can no longer have a healthcare system where the ability to buy medicine or get your teeth fixed depends on having a job with benefits or enough savings in your account. The Liberals first promised pharmacare over 2 decades ago. People need to be able to get their medication with their health card, not their credit card. Over the last several months, we've seen millions of Canadians lose their jobs. Many have not returned to work. Many simply can't. When the pandemic hit, New Democrats knew that Canadians would need help to pay their bills. But Justin Trudeau's answer was an employment insurance that leaves most people out. New Democrats have made a difference for people. We fought for the help for everyone that needed it. When the Prime Minister left out students, we fought for them. When he left out seniors, we fought for them. When he left out people living with disabilities, we fought for them.
We're up here every single day. We're spending millions of dollars on advertising from the television, the newspapers, the radios, the ethnic media. You can't walk outside and talk to a friend without talking about COVID. And we're just asking these young people, please, just stay in small groups, follow the protocols and guidelines. And you said, I don't want to snitch on a friend. It's not about snitching on a friend. It's about saving the friend's grandmother or grandfather or their parents' lives. So it's not about snitching at all. They have to be honest and transparent, and if you aren't, this is just going to continue going. I always say that the government does everything in their powers to keep everyone safe, but the public, as they have, the 14.5 million people, the reason we were below 100 cases because everyone's pitched in. And so we need their help. Like, government can't do it alone, health can't do it alone, hospitals can't do it alone.
Comments this morning about the findings of the international investigation that's going on into international money laundering. And clearly Canada has been accused many, many times of being a perfect place to get rid of dirty money. We've known through the West the allegations in casinos, through purchasing of real estate. But what was really shocking in the latest revelation is the role the grand banks internationally are playing in terms of not reporting money laundering. Money laundering has a corrosive effect on the economy. And we know that Canada, because there's many problems with our reporting mechanisms for corporations that hide the ability of people with dirty money to invest in Canada, and we need to start actually putting better standards of transparency in order to address the crisis of dirty money.
These people are crazy. This is going to be a disaster.
His previous role as House Leader, obviously we were very aware of this. I think that there has been and will continue to be an abundance of caution to ensure that members of Parliament are safe, that the staff, that the precinct is safe. So I feel satisfied that everyone has the right motives in terms of making sure that safety is paramount. So I feel confident. Well, the whips are working on that, so I'm happy with whatever decision is made. I know there's been a variety. Initially, it was I believe we had 11 of our own MPs, and I believe that that's increasing. Well, we did a test yesterday, and there were a lot of hiccups. So there's a lot of work to be done on that.
Weapons are at an advanced level like we've never had before, like frankly we've never even thought of having before. And I only pray to God that we never have to use them. For decades, the same tired voices proposed the same failed solutions. pursuing global ambitions at the expense of their own people. But only when you take care of your own citizens will you find a true basis for cooperation. As president, I have rejected the failed approaches of the past, and I am proudly putting America first, just as you should be putting your countries first. That's okay. That's what you should be doing.
Few moments to add to the excellent presentation given by the member for Leeds Grenfell and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, in part because it was my motion, an NDP motion that was brought forward to the Finance Committee on July 7th. And I very carefully wrote that motion, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that any redactions necessary be made by the Office of the Law Clerk and Parliamentary Counsel of the House of Commons. The idea was very clear, Mr. Speaker, that redactions that took place would only be taking place by through the Office of the Law Clerk. Mr. Speaker, as you're well aware, all MPs from all parties voted for that motion. So this is not a partisan issue at all. It's an issue of ensuring that the privileges of the House of Commons are maintained, Mr. Speaker. And it was with shock and consternation that the same day that we became aware through the Office of the Law Clerk writing to the Clerk of the Standing Committee on Finance, saying very clearly that departments made certain redactions to documents on grounds that were not contemplated in the order of the committee, and also stating that as my office has not been given the opportunity to see the unredacted documents, we are not able to confirm whether those redactions are consistent with the order of the committee. Of course, the committee would have acted immediately, Mr. Speaker, but as the member points out, at the very same moment that we became aware of the censorship of these documents, 5,000 pages, 1,000 of them that were basically completely or substantially altered and censored, the committee was shut down.
These people are crazy. This is going to be a disaster.
Well, Mr. Speaker, another Liberal speech from the throne, another speech full of recycled Liberal promises with grand gestures and lofty visions, but with no real plan to deal with the pandemic, no real plan to deal with the urgent healthcare needs of the provinces, no real plan to deal with lack of jobs, no real plan to deal with Canadian unity issues and Western alienation. Mr. Speaker, no plan to deal with the economy. The Liberal speech from the throne is full of the same old promises and recycled ideas that we have all been hearing about for years and years and years. And many of these promises have been unfulfilled, and they leave countless people behind. I'm talking about the people who drive a Ford 150, like thousands of Canadians, and they're tired of being insulted by Liberal elites.
Here, here.
Shut down Parliament, he prorogued Parliament, he shut down committees, he stopped everything dead in its tracks when he was being exposed for his scandal. Why? Because he said he was going to present a speech from the throne that would give Canadians a plan. It did none of that. It's clear, Mr. Speaker, the only reason he prorogued Parliament was to cover up and distract from his own scandal.
These people are crazy. This is going to be a disaster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reality is that we are cleaning up the mess the Conservatives have left us with regard to official languages. We're not only cleaning up the mess at the federal level, but also the mess at the provincial level, including the mess left behind by Doug Ford. Now, Jason Kenney is, in fact...
Thirdly, it's my view that with the lower numbers provided in the response to the written question for the purpose of misleading the House, we're not talking here about blowing a construction estimate several years down the road. It's a pattern pretty common in government. But these are two sets of figures, most likely being prepared simultaneously and quite likely by the same official. In fact, I'm informed that the documents provided to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation are date-stamped April 22nd of this year, a full 3 months before the answer to my question was tabled in this House. This means that the government cannot even plausibly argue that the costs changed between the time that the answer was provided to me and when the same response was provided to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. The government would have known that the cost provided to me omitted items which were part of the completed costing document, which was later provided to the Federation.
These people are crazy. This is going to be a disaster.
And why? Because there are few consequences for countries that ignore international rules, for regimes that think might makes right. Few consequences for places where opposition figures are being poisoned while cyber tools and disinformation are being used to destabilize democracies. Few consequences when innocent citizens are arbitrarily detained and fundamental freedoms are repressed, when a plane of civilians is shot from the sky, when women's rights are not treated as human rights, when no one has any rights at all.
Mr. Speaker, and good morning to everyone. I'd like to ask you, through you, Mr. Speaker, to the honourable colleague on the opposite aisle. Our government, over the last few months, under this most extraordinary and unique time in our country's and the world's history, has worked in partnership with the provinces from coast to coast to coast. The Safe Restart Agreement, we've contributed $19 billion to provinces, and a further $2 billion to provinces in restarting their educational system. Like my two daughters have gone back to school, and I'm thankful for that. And I'd like to ask the member opposite, these partnerships, including the Canadian Armed Forces, which was asked by the province of Ontario and Quebec to assist, has shown how this country works, how this country comes together in a time of great need and respond in a very compassionate and diligent manner. And I wonder, and I say to her, say to my honourable colleague, what she thinks of this, what my honourable colleague thinks of this cooperation that has existed, this partnership that has existed for the last several months and continues to proceed forward. Thank you, Mr.
Speaker. The honourable member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Well, Mr. Speaker, we don't really have the same definition of what collaboration is or teamwork.
And protecting the economy. TD economist Ksenia Bushmianova.
Well, member for Carleton.
Oh, yes, the bankers are very happy. Yeah. They're making all kinds of money these days, Mr. Speaker. But you know who's not happy? The million working class people who no longer have jobs.
Yes.
Who had to come home and sit at the kitchen table with their spouse and say, honey, I no longer have work or a paycheck, and I don't know what we're going to do. No government program can replace the mighty force of our 20 million workers, the power of a paycheck. When will this government get out of the way and let our workers get back into jobs?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me remind the member for Carleton and all Canadians what he said on March 8th when asked about what support the government should offer to those very Canadians hurt by the pandemic. I quote, "You may want to address COVID-19 with big, fat government programs. We're conservatives. We don't believe in that. Our government chose to support Canadians, and we are proud of it. I hate to imagine what the Conservatives would have done had they been elected in 2019.
The member for Carleton.
Well, there you go. They believe that big, fat government programs can replace the dignity and productivity of a job. Everyday Canadians actually want the opportunity to work. That is the only thing that will permanently put food on the table and provide the wealth necessary to fund our cherished social safety net. This government has the worst jobs record in the G7, 1/3 higher unemployment than across the OECD. Wow. When will they acknowledge that their plan is just not working?
These people are crazy. This is going to be a disaster.